morning, traders. I am Emily Advani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd. Investors worry about inflation, interest rates, and trade wars are stoking negative sentiment after a downbeat start to the week. During regular trading yesterday, markets ended solidly in the red. The Dow tumbled 971 points, or about 2.5%. The S&P 500 slid 124 points, or 2.36%. The Nasdaq gave up 415 points, or more than 2.5%. That looks like there's some green on the screen this morning. Let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Yes. Good morning, Emily. I'm watching S&Ps. We're up 0.76. Not bad. A little bit of a relief rally. Still not a big buyer in the rallies, but we are trading higher this morning, so that's good to see. Because yesterday's sell-off was pretty hard, and so I was expecting a little bit of a bump up today, especially because there was a lot of buying at the close, and that's what I saw. But today, realistically, the focus is on earnings today, tomorrow. I mean, this morning, GE, Danaher, ticker ELV, they're all trading higher after their earnings releases this morning. And after the bell today, you got earnings reports from Tesla, SAP, Chubb, Package Corp of America, and ISRG, Interactive Surgical. So we got a lot of good ones coming up. Now, today, one of the things I'm going to be paying attention to is the Fed speak, because there's a lot of Fed speak out there going on today. And, you saw what happened yesterday. President Trump came in there and he just was highly critical of Jerome Powell's ability to manage the Fed. He's demanding lower interest rates now. Well, this isn't the first time that a president has demanded that the Federal Reserve Chairman lower interest rates. I remember the first President Bush doing that against Alan Greenspan. It didn't work. They are independent. And that's what I expect to see from the Fed officials today when they're speaking. I expect them to continue to point out for the need for the Fed to be independent of political pressure, because if a president can make the decision on interest rates, we're going to have 0% interest rates or negative interest rates, throughout their entire time in office. So yeah, I expect them to really kind of come out there and say and discuss the need for an independent Fed in their comments today. There are news reports this morning that the U.S. has made what's called significant progress on a trade deal with India. Notice no announcements have been made. We need to get some announcements on trade deals for this market to turn and really be able to move higher. But supposedly, significant progress has been made with the trade deal with India. Now, the Trump administration, they're intending to press India to give online retailers like Amazon, Walmart full access to their 125 billion e-commerce marketplace. So, that's something to keep an eye on. But, the week ahead full of earnings reports, and that's going to be a key to the market's action this week. But then we're taking a look over what's happening over in Europe. Now, the DAX is down 0.61% or 129 points. I was expecting it to be, weaken further because of yesterday's big slide in the U.S. markets, but being down only 0.6%, I mean, that's actually kind of positive. I mean, the U.S. trade policy continues to have a negative effect on market sentiment across the globe, but the FTSE, on the other hand, is higher. The FTSE is, flat to higher. It's up 0.05%. I mean, you're seeing some gains in consumer staples and food retailers. That's positive. France, on the other hand, it's down 42 points or 0.59% with some weakness in luxury stocks. There are those IMF meetings that are going on today in Washington, D.C. Maybe that might be something coming out of that. And Asia last night was kind of mixed. I'd say mixed to higher, though. I mean, the Nikkei, fell 0.17%. Or 59 points. The yen surged to a 7-month high. That kind of created some pressure on equities. But in Hong Kong, you saw, that market finish up 0.78%. Gains in property, financial, and consumer stocks, that's all positive in China. The Shanghai Composite was up 0.25%. Now, there are expectations of additional stimulus action coming out of Beijing, as their market continues to deal with this trade war with the U.S. Now we're turning our attention over to oil for a moment, and oil is trading higher. It's up over 1%. Remember, yesterday's activity was kind of exasperated, kind of really went beyond normal because the liquidity was really low because a lot of the markets were closed Monday for the continuation of the Easter holiday. But this morning we're seeing WTI is trading at $63.92 a barrel. That's up 1.33%. We're seeing Brent trading at $66.99 a barrel. That's up 1.10%. So, up over 1%. That's good. And, this afternoon we got the API stockpile data coming out. And then, we also got to kind of think ahead and realize that OPEC's going to be raising production at in May. So that's 8 days away. So that's something else to keep in focus. But that's what I have for you in terms of morning market update report, Emily.
Bill, we can hear from your opening there that there's a number of key drivers in the markets. And, as we continue to monitor tariff talks and inflation, the health of the economy, you did mention a couple of other things that are worth watching, including earnings reports. It's going to be a number of important ones throughout the week and a number that came out. You did mention GE. That was your pick of the day yesterday. Stick with us to the end of the show. We will do a check-in on that. So let's start with earnings action. Bill, what is going on there?
Let's start with GE. GE Aerospace, they beat by 21 cents and they did it on a higher revenue. That stock's up over more than $8 this morning, or positive by 4.61%. So yeah, very, very good. 3M, Minnesota Mining Manufacturing, they beat by 11 cents. They did it on higher revenue. Stock initially fell to 125, but now it's trading back up to 134, which is up 6.79% after they released earnings. Verizon, ticker VZ, hey, they beat by 4 cents. They did it on higher revenue, but the stock is trading lower by 5.26% this morning. Not a horrible report, but it was getting ahead of itself. That's key. And then today, after the bell, you got Tesla, ticker TSLA. Their EPS is 45 cents. Expected move is 10.39%. You got Packaging Corp of America, PKG. Their EPS is $2.22. Expected move is 8.55%. And SAP Corp, their EPS is $1.38. Their expected move is 8.92% when these companies release after the bell today.
And Bill, we already pointed out GE, but that was your pick of the day, as I mentioned, and it's having a nice little run this morning. We may have given it away, but we will do a check-in on that. Now we're going to get to the day's economic events. You also told us, Bill, that you're really keeping a close eye on this Fed speak. That has been really key here as well, getting indicators on what the Fed is going to do next. Regardless of what the presidential administration is saying, as you said, they are independent entities. So keeping an eye on this slew of Fed speak today is important as we sort of gauge what their expectations are moving forward. So let's get to the economic events. Bill, give us a rundown of what we should be watching when it comes to the day's economic events.
At 10 a.m., we get the Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index. Then we get the Fed speak to talk about, because at 9 a.m., we get Fed Governor Philip Jefferson speaking. Also at 9 a.m., Philadelphia Fed Bank President Patrick Harker will be speaking. 1:40 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be hearing from Minneapolis Fed Bank President Neil Kashkari. 2:30 p.m., we're going to hear from Richmond Fed Bank President Thomas Barkin. And at 6 p.m. tonight, we're going to hear from Fed Governor Adriana Krugler, as she set to speak. Yesterday, we did hear from Austin Goolsbee of the Chicago Fed Bank, of the Chicago Fed. He went on to say, and his comments were really focused on two main topics: the independence of the Federal Reserve amid political pressure and economic impact of the recent tariff announcements. I mean, he strongly defended the Fed Reserve's autonomy, and I think that these other Fed speakers are going to do the same today, because how do I want to put this? They're data driven. The Fed has always been data driven. They wait for the reports to come out before they make decisions. They don't try and speculate. Trump wants them to speculate. He says interest rate is, the inflation is down. Now is the time to lower interest rates. Well, they have to see proof. And inflation isn't zero. It's actually kind of upticking a little bit. So I don't foresee them ever to come in and start becoming speculators. That's just not what the Fed has ever done. So watch for them to continue to say that they're going to be remaining independent from political pressures in their meeting. And tomorrow, hey, we get the flash PMIs coming out. Those are going to be a big one for the market. But that's what I have for you in terms of a morning market update this morning, Emily.
And watching that commentary and data coming out, as you mentioned, the flash PMI, is going to be easy to follow along because you have your NewsWare, you have an economic alert set up. You also have alerts set up for federal officials so that you can follow those comments as they come out and really watch, are they trending with where you're expecting in terms of remaining independent? What data are they looking at? And what do we expect from them in the future? And you also have your earnings alert. That's how you're following all of those earnings reports, grabbing them as they hit the tape. And there's still other types of news and information that you're grabbing as it hits the tape. Merger news, guidance news, shareholders meeting, buyback news, catalyst calls. You also look at your stocks grouped together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
I'm doing a quick data check. I'm looking at my Dow stocks. I got 3 lower, 27 higher. So, that's a good way to start. I mean, what's lower? Verizon? Okay, I expected it. And looking at my FANG stocks, we're showing green across the board. So, that's positive. And, you look at some of the news behind it, behind the tape this morning, and, we're showing some nice gains in Amazon today. It's up over 1% because, hey, the Trump administration intends to press India to give online retailers and specifically Amazon and Walmart, access to its e-commerce markets. Amazon up 1.10% this morning. Google, stocks up 0.72% this morning. Alphabet is in talks to ramp up pixel production in India. Interesting. See, that's going to be a common theme here. Meta Platforms, you look at the stock, is up 0.81% this morning. They're said to be working with parents to enroll more teens into teen accounts. Interesting development there. Uh, Tesla, we're looking at earnings are after the bell today, but stocks trading higher by 0.82%. And Tesla sweetened its 0% loan offer to EV buyers in China. They got a big global slump going on here, and with their earnings coming out this afternoon, you got to expect that Elon Musk is going to kind of address this situation. Then we're looking over at Dow Jones 30 stocks. Got to point out Boeing, ticker BA, up 0.47%. They're said to be nearing a deal with Thomas Bravo over their Genspin unit. JP Morgan, they came out with an announcement late yesterday saying that their Investors Day is going to take place on May 19th. That's something to keep an eye on. In terms of guidance news, RTX, Raytheon, they backed their full year 2025 adjusted EPS view of $6 to $6.15. Street estimate is at $6.11. Okay, that's good enough. DGX, Quest Diagnostics, they backed their full year 2025 EPS view 955 to 980. Street estimates at $9.69. Not bad. 3M backs its full year EPS view of 760 to 790. Street estimate is $7.75. Again, in the middle. Okay, not bad, not bad. In terms of shareholders meetings going on, Bank of America, ticker BAC, they're having a shareholders meeting today at 10 a.m. and Adobe, ticker ADBE, they're having a shareholders meeting that starts at 9 a.m. Apple, David Boy Edward. In terms of buyback news, the EFX, Edward Frank X-Ray, this is Equifax. They announced a share repurchase agreement of $3 billion dollars worth of shares, and Synchrony Financial, the SYF, Sam Yellow Frank, they announced a share repurchasing program of $2.5 billion. So yeah, that's what I have for you about the news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. It is now that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, what do you have for us today?
EQT Corp, ticker EQT, Elvis Quinton Thomas. Listen, earnings are out after the bell. EPS is $1.02. Expected move is 6.21%. You look at yesterday's call volume. We had 8,267 calls against 2,605 puts. I mean, in yesterday's market, which was highly negative, this was a 0.32 put to call ratio, very positive. Now the open interest, 133,000 versus 92,000. Again, that's positive. And major brokers are positive on the stock. And then I reread last quarter's earnings report, and I see that the CEO stated EQT operations are firing on all cylinders, and that this momentum is carrying on into 2025. Gotta like that statement. That's a positive indication of good business trends. Now, in terms of getting in the stock, listen, I want to get in $48 or under. Last trade was 47.67. Current bid offer is $48 to $50.93. So, it is possible to get in $48 or under. But that's my pick of the day. EQT corporate earnings play. Elvis, Quentin, Tom, Emily.
Another earnings play today, Bill, and looking at those pieces of data along with targeting a certain entry point, some of the strategy that you used yesterday, and coming up we will do that recap on yesterday's pick of the day as I promised. But ahead of that, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, what do we see here? RGTI, Richard Grace, Tom, India. This is a quantum computing stock. Subsidiary to lead 3.5 million GPB consortium. Could be something there. Goldman Sachs CEO was did an interview this morning, talks about how the Trump administration is engaged with the business community. That's true. CEO Solomon also said that growth had slowed with the Trump due to the Trump trade policy. Yeah, that's true. GE's Culp met with Trump in person to discuss the impact on aerospace. Big oil companies are offshoring engineering jobs to India, according to the journal. Again, India theme. Interesting. The lobbyists are said to be pressing the Trump administration for tariff were pretty similar to what Apple got. And, this is like Target and Walmart, the big box retailer. And, and these guys have inventory levels that are supposed to be, are said to be elevated. As, these companies moved to acquire goods ahead of the tariffs taking place. So they're stockpiling a lot. So margins are going to be watched when they release earnings. That's all I'm seeing this morning, Emily.
Okay, Bill, before we go and dive into trading on this Tuesday, let's do that check-in on your today's pick of the day. Mentioned a couple of times throughout the show is GE Aerospace. We did just hear from you, your NewsWare alerts that news came across the tape about them talking about the impacts of tariffs. I did catch a headline as well saying that GE Aerospace says it's investing $1 billion in U.S. manufacturing in 2025. Now, this is also coupled with their earnings. As you did tell us during your earnings rundown, that beat on higher revenue, they did release an adjusted earnings per share of $1.49, well ahead of Wall Street's estimates of $1.27. It represented a 60% year-over-year increase from 82 cents a share. They did come in with an adjusted revenue at $9 billion. And depending on what estimates you were looking at, it was either on target with those expectations or even above. Positive outlook for GE. They project low double-digit revenue growth and adjusted EPS of $5.10 to $5.45 in full year 2025. A number of news items there, but the headline here is that the stock is running this morning. Bill, how did your call work out?
Listen, it worked out really well yesterday. I mean, yesterday was a good day for the stock, that's for sure. I mean, you look at the stock; it opened up at 179.29. It did. And then immediately, it fell down. It fell down to 178.62, then popped back up to 180.73. So, that was a good sign. But this was an earnings play, and I was, thinking that, GE was going to, have a good move, and the stock did, hit a low yesterday of, 176.91. But you look at the stock this morning; it's trading 186.20. I mean, it already hit a high of 186.68. So anyway, you look at it. I mean, that GE pick was a winner. GE Aerospace, win-win-win, Emily.
A nice win there, Bill. Again, on unpredictable trading days, that feels like even more of a win to get that type of win today. And we will check in with you tomorrow about today's EQT Corp pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning with NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Vani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.